Water in the semi-arid West is a precious resource. A lot of our water, late in the summer especially, is coming from snowpack. But unfortunately in Montana, it's something that we're able to depend on less and less. And because we're losing that water that's stored as snow, we're looking for another way to store that water.
Water is the lifeblood of everything. I mean, it's crops, it's livestock, it's wildlife, and people. Here in the Red Rock, in this valley, you know, a lot of that ground is fairly deep soil and holds water well. But basically, all the ranchers in the valley here benefit either directly or indirectly from that stored water.
So we're looking at the landscape carefully and trying to protect some of the most important watersheds that'll create a sponge that effectively gets soaked during spring runoff and sustain our rivers into the future.
So if you have an intact natural system where beaver are part of the stream channel, that causes flow to spread out. It's able to soak into the ground, then becomes part of the groundwater. That eventually feeds back into the river, and that's a slower process than if you just kept all the water in the channel. The problem is we don't have beaver in these locations, and in some places we can't just bring necessarily beaver back into an area. So we are trying to build structures that in some ways mimic the structures that beaver build, to spread out the flow of the river, which makes the river begin to migrate back and forth and create a new active floodplain.
Well, flood irrigation is kind of like beavers, you know, backs up water and gives the water a chance to percolate down into the soil and into the subsoil, and then that actually stores the water, and then it returns later to the stream and replenish the stream basically the rest of the year.
So science is really important when we're talking about water conservation because we don't have all the answers, and managing water is contentious. A lot of people have demands on that water, and we want to make sure that we're approaching it most effectively with the right strategies in the right places.
I've been working really closely with the Nature Conservancy to try to develop these conservation plans and come up with ways that we can look at the landscape and look at what locations beavers were able to persist over dry times over the last 6,000 years in the Greater Yellowstone. These are sites that are going to be a little more resilient to the effects of climate change.
You know, you can't make any more water. So you just, as neighbors, we kind of have to get along, you know, so each one gets his fair share and then we use it to the best of our abilities.
So the Nature Conservancy is working with local communities and scientists to develop long-term solutions that work for people and for nature. Water conservation is really a team effort. You can be part of the team by supporting the Nature Conservancy's work in Montana. You can find out more at nature.org/headwaters.